Good afternoon, everyone. Our topic for today is about the theories of first language acquisition.
Behavioristic approach. B.F. Skinner believed that children learn language through operant conditioning. In other words, children receive rewards for using language in a functional manner. For example, a child learns to say the word drink when she is thirsty. She receives something to drink, which reinforces her own word for getting a drink. And now, she will continue to do so. This follows the fourth term contingency that Skinner believed was the basic of language development, or motivating operations, discriminative stimuli, response, and reinforcing stimuli. The second approach is the nativist approach. It suggests that we're born with a specific language learning area in our brain. Nativists believe that children are wired to learn language regardless of their environment. Nativist theorists argue that children are born with an innate ability to organize loss of language, which enables children to easily learn a native language. They believe that children have language-specific abilities that assist them as they work towards mastering a language. Also, Noam Chomsky believes that LAD, or Language Acquisition Device, helps children discipline the grammatical structures of their native languages, subconsciously mapping new lexical items to their corresponding word, class, and syntactic position. Noam Chomsky stating that children's brains contains a language acquisition device which holds two grammatical universals. This theory came about as children have been observed to pick up grammar and syntax without any formal teaching or in spoken language.
The next theory is called the cognitive theory. John Piaget's theory of language development suggests that children use both assimilation and accommodation to learn language. Assimilation is the process of taking in and fully understanding information or ideas, while accommodation refers to the part of adaptation process, and it involves the development and alteration of mental representations, schemas, as individuals encounter new situations. The cognitive language acquisition theory uses the idea that children are born with very little cognitive abilities, meaning that they are not able to recognize and process very much information at first. So the first stage is called the sensory-motor stage. Infants and children know the world through their movements and sensations. They learn about the world through basic actions such as sucking, grasping, looking, and listening, as they realize that by doing those, they result to different happenings. The sensory motor stage typically takes place within the first 2 years of a child's life. It is marked by the child discovering the difference between themselves and their environment. At that point, they will use their senses to learn things about both themselves and their environment. The next stage is called the pre-operational stage. Children begin to think symbolically and learn to use words and pictures to represent objects. While they are getting better with language and thinking, they still tend to think about things in very concrete terms. During the pre-operational stage, young children are able to think about things symbolically. Their language use becomes more mature, They also develop memory and imagination, which allows them to understand the difference between past and future and engage in make-believe. The third stage is called the concrete operational stage. Children's thinking becomes more logical and organized, but still very concrete. According to Piaget, thinking in this stage is characterized by logical operations such as conservation, reversibility, or classification, allowing logical reasoning. A child in the concrete operational is able to make use of logical principles in solving problems involving the physical world. For example, the child can understand principles of cause and effect, size, and distance. And the last stage in the cognitive development stages is called the formal operational stage. Adolescents or young adults begin to think abstractly and reason about hypothetical problems. Their abstract thoughts emerge. They begin to think more about moral, philosophical, ethical, social, and political issues that require theoretical and abstract reasoning. The formal operational stage is characterized by the ability to form hypotheses and systematically test them to arrive at an answer to a problem. The individual in the formal stage is also able to think abstractly to understand the form or structure of a mathematical and other types of problem. Then the next theory or approach is called the functional approach. The functional approach looks at how language enables us to do things like to share information, to inquire, to express attitudes, to entertain, to argue, to get our needs met, to reflect, to construct ideas, to order our experiences and make sense of the world. Some examples are greeting, introducing yourself, asking for or giving advice, explaining rules, apologizing or agreeing and disagreeing. Any one of these functions can have a number of different exponents or fixed expressions. So from the word function, because of this functional approach, we are able to use language in different situations. Just like what is stated here, to share information, we use language to share information. That's a function of a language, as well as to share, to express our attitudes, to entertain, and so on and so forth. That's how that approach works. And for the last part of our discussion, we are going to tackle the stages in child language acquisition. First, let us define what is language acquisition. It is the process by which humans acquire the capacity to perceive and comprehend language, as well as to produce and use words and sentences to communicate. So the stage 1 in child language acquisition is called the pre-production. During this stage, the student is normally silent while listening to new words and gaining an understanding of the language. At the pre-production stage, a student cannot speak the target language. In other words, this stage is often called the silent period. It is called the silent period because a child cannot use yet what he or she understands. Although at this stage a learner cannot yet speak, one begins to understand more language slowly. This includes basic words such as hello, come here. He or she may also be able to say simple words. The next stage is called the early production. At this stage, students start to practice pronouncing new words and typically learn at least 1,000 new words and their meanings. They also start using their new words to speak in short phrases. In the early production, second language acquisition stage, a child begins to speak using more words and sentences. The student focuses on listening and absorbing the new language. When speaking, many language errors occur. A language begins to use short sentences such as how are you? Additionally, he or she may understand short sentences and be able to answer using single words such as fine or good. The third stage is called speech emergence. Vocabulary continues to expand and students will know a minimum of 3,000 words by the end of this stage. They start to speak in longer phrases and sentences and to ask questions. In addition, at this stage, they will start reading and writing assignments. At the speech emergence stage, a student has good comprehension. Additionally, learners can produce simple sentences, use more phrases, and ask questions. However, grammatical and pronunciation errors are often made during this stage. The learner engages in more conversations but is conscious of their language learning process. Interpreting happens for a less period of time because language becomes more fluent. However, jokes and idioms are only sometimes understood. The fourth stage is called intermediate fluency. Students start to think and form responses in the new language. By the end of this stage, most people have learned well over 6,000 different words and their meanings. They are also speaking more fluently and continuing to improve upon their reading and writing abilities. A learner communicates and writes using more complex sentences during this stage. As a result, a student has excellent comprehension skills. In addition, they engage in academic language more independently. In this stage, you'll see fewer grammatical and pronunciation errors. As a result, students are much more comfortable using the language. Less interpreting happens in the brain to communicate and understand. And the fifth and last stage is called the advanced fluency production. People who reach this stage continue to improve upon and expand their vocabulary and abilities in their second language. Once a language learner reaches advanced fluency, they have acquired a near native level of speech. At this moment, a language learner masters academic language. In addition, language use becomes automatic. Although grammatical errors are no longer an issue, pronunciation errors may still occur. These pronunciation errors may occur because of an accent, which may appear depending on the age at that language learning began. That's all for our discussion for today, and I hope that you have learned many things about the theories of first language acquisition. Thank you for listening.